Hi, I'm Chris Porter from down here at Y.E.S Fitness, and I'm here today with Brenda Nice, certified exercise physiologist. And we're going to continue to take a look at the body and how we train by joint method. So last time we discussed the ankle joint and how that needs to be mobile. Today we're going to discuss the hip joint and how to address the mobility in your hip joint. So Brenda's going to start off today with a half kneel, two-arm overhead reach. So we're going to come down into this position. We're going to try to address the mobility in the front part of the hip. We sit all day long, that gets really tight, and those muscles get tight, it'll affect how your back works. So in the half kneel position, Brenda's going to have her toe tucked in. This butt cheek is real tight, so her back doesn't arch. And she's just going to rock forward, get a little stretch right down here in the front of the thigh, in the front of her hip. She's going to do that about 8 to 10 times on each leg. Feeling that stretch as she comes forward. She doesn't want to go too far and too hard, and she does not want to go far enough so that her back arches. Make sure you keep your backside tight. From there, we're going to come down and we're going to address the outside of the hip with a nice hip adductor mobility drill called a seated figure 4 stretch. So Brenda's going to have a seat, hands are just right underneath her arms, back stays nice and flat. As you can see, her right foot's up over her left knee, and she's going to raise her front toe or her left toe, and it's going to just give a little bit of pull on the outside of the hips. She's going to pull it in, get a nice stretch, and pull it in and get a stretch. We're going to do that about 8 or 10 times on this leg, and then Brenda would switch to the other side. And then again, see that toe pulling in and getting the outer stretch on the outer hip. From there, we're going to go down to a supine or a lying down internal rotator stretch or mobility drill. So as Brenda lies down here, she's going to have her hands up, and she's going to really try to keep her back down onto the carpet as she drives the outside knee down in nice and tight, rotating from side to side. Just getting a little feel right in here. She can feel some stretch in there and some movement on her internal rotators. Again, it'll be about 8 or 10 on each leg. And finally, Brenda's going to finish up with which we call a goalie stretch or an adductor or an inner thigh stretch for her inner thighs. So she's going to put her knees on the slides, just stretch it out nice and far, and then she's going to just sit back into the hips. She's going to hold it there nice and tight, get a nice stretch on that inner thigh right down in here. So as Brenda holds that for a second, I just want to discuss the hips again. So if the hip loses its mobility, doesn't move as well as it should, other parts of the body are going to take over for that, whether the knee has to do some work or the low back has to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Brenda come up into a quadruped position on all four. Just turn to the side just a little bit. And we're going to have Brenda do a, let's come on to one knee here. She's going to have one knee on the pad. So she's down in the hip flat, the quadruped position. She's going to raise this hip up so both knees are the same height. So if you notice, Brenda has great hip mobility because as she opens up her hip, her back, her low back does not move at all, okay? For someone who has lousy hip mobility, when they were to raise this knee up, just demonstrate that, Brenda. You notice how she opens up her back. Now her back is compensating for what she cannot do with her hip. Do it correctly again with her hip. So you can see that if over time, if she continues to rock her back poorly like that, with poor hip mobility, she will eventually have some back trouble. So let's stand right up. So the hip mobility is extremely important for the knee and the back to make sure that they don't get pain all the time. Thank you.